Welcome. This is a practice test. I'm going to show you a test and I'll explain how to approach answering questions. Here's the first question. In the statement below, the variable OK is called a blank. Let's look at this variable. What data type is it? It's a bool data type. Let's take a look at how it is being used. What we see on the right hand side is a logical expression. I'm checking that GPA is greater than or equal to 0 and it is less than or equal to 4.0. You may recognize this as checking to see if the GPA is valid. So OK is a variable that lets you know from this point on that the value of GPA is valid. If I want to base an action on whether the GPA is valid, once I set this variable, I can use this value because it remembers the result. So I can say if OK, what's the value of OK? It's a Boolean, therefore it's either true or false. So I don't need to say more than this. What goes inside the parentheses in an if statement is an expression that gives you a true or false. A Boolean automatically gives you a true or false. But the name of a Boolean variable that's used in this way to remember the outcome of some test, we call that a flag. Now, I'm not going to write the answer to this, but this is about input. How do I skip over the next character read in through the keyboard? And most of y'all know that there's a function called cn.ignore, which will ignore one character. So I can say cn.ignore. Ignore is a function, that is, it does some work for you. It is not a variable, it's a function. The right paren, left paren, right paren says this is a function like square root that does work for you, or like getLine. So that's one way to do it. Another way you can do this is to say cn_ignore 1. By default, if you don't say anything at all, it automatically means a 1. Now, how do you write this? I am not going to write this, but what does this mean in algebra? It means we're going to divide. We're going to divide the quantity in the numerator by the quantity or the result you get from the denominator. What operations are we doing here? In algebra, we're taking A and multiplying it and adding it to 4 times A. In algebra, we don't put an operator to mean multiplication. We put variables next to each other, they mean multiply. I can put a constant followed by a variable, it means multiply. So you must write this the way we do it in C++. If a loop is nested inside of a loop, how does that work? Well, we said before, when I have a loop inside of a loop, it kind of looks like this. Here's the outer loop. If I have another loop inside of it, it kind of looks like I have a loop here. Didn't mean that. We have a loop inside. It looks like this. And eventually it comes to an end. And eventually this comes to an end. So we basically have the outer and we have the inner. Here's the question. When loops are nested, what is the relationship? Suppose this goes n times, and this goes m times, whatever m is. What's the meaning of the loop? Each time the outer loop repeats one time, the inner loop repeats m times. So let's read the question. When a loop is nested inside of another loop, the outer loop goes through all of its iterations. All of its iterations could mean, if we did a for loop, we're going to say I equal 1, I less than equal to n, I plus plus. That's how we achieve that. Each time through the outer loop, the inner loop must run to completion, which means the inner loop repeats its set of repetitions one time for each time the outer loop executes. So what's the answer? The outer loop goes through all of its iterations for each iteration of the inner loop. Is this correct, or is it really backwards? The inner loop goes through all of its repetitions or iterations for each repetition of the outer loop. So is this true or false? Leave it blank. What's the final value of what's the final value of this? We basically have to trace this program. So let's suppose we have two variables we got to keep track of. One of them is num, and the other one is sum. Sum starts off at 0, num starts off at 2. We have a while loop. It says while sum is less than 10. When if sum less than 10, if sum is 0, less than 10. While it's less than 10 means that we execute what's in the body. What's that? In the body, we say we got to increase sum by adding what to it? We're going to add num, but before we add num, we're going to do what? We're going to increment num, so num becomes a 3. So what we're adding is sum goes from 0 to 3. What has happened to num? Num has gone from 2 to 3. So sum has gone from 0 to 0 plus 3, which is 3. Now we go back to the while. What's the value of sum? Sum is a 3 now. Is 3 less than 10? Yes. So that means we increment sum. So what are we going to do? We're going to take sum. It used to be a 3. Used to be a 3. And we're going to change it by doing what? Adding something to it. Going to add what? The current value of num is 3. Before we add it to sum, we're going to increment num. So up here, num is really going to increase by saying num is going to go to 4. So down here, we're going to add 4 to num. That gives us a 7. So when we go back to the while, it's sum less than 10. Sum is 7. It is less than 10. So we execute the body again. What does that mean? It means we do this statement. We're going to add something to sum. What are we adding to sum? Well, first of all, we got to increment num. So num now becomes a 5. And now down here, we're going to say take sum, which used to be a 7. We're going to add 5 to it, which is a 12. And now when we go back over here, we're going to say is sum less than 12? Is sum, which is 12, less than 10? The answer is no. At this point, the loop terminates. What's the value of num? The value of num is a 5. Okay? I'm expecting you not to try to memorize this because you think I'm going to ask you the same question. Please. Please. Okay? What have I done? Okay. So in this case, the answer is a 5. Whoa. Value of okay, I'm getting some crazy stuff in here. Okay. It appears that I'm asking the wrong question. The answer that I was really asking for, what's the value of sum? All right, so I can fix the question. Is it clear that I could have asked you either one? All right, I think the clock is ticking. We got to hurry up and move on. All right. Now, what kind of decision looks like a chain of if statements? If, else if, else if, else if, else. Is it E? No. Is it A? No. Is it B? No. Is it, oh heck, else if. All of these are messed up, okay? Because the pattern is if, else if, else if, else if, followed by an else. So this is really missing all of these. No cussing, okay? Hurry. If I have a do-while loop, what does the do-while loop look like? It looks like do, some body, until, while, some condition. What do we know about a do-while loop? It's a post-test loop, which means we always do the body at least one time. If the condition is true, we'll go back and do the body other times. So for this answer, you know what it is. Okay, I'm not going to tell you. Show the sequence of lines executed. Okay? Now this problem looks like what we had up here. It looks almost like looks like you have a variable called num. It starts off at 12. Sum starts off at 10. Okay? We're going to start off by saying sum, line 1, sum is sum plus num. So we're going to take this, add num to it. Now is sum greater than 35? The answer is no. So where does this if statement end? If sum is greater than 35, we do the one statement line 4. Okay? I'm doing this wrong. I'm not doing what it's asking me to do. I got to be careful. Okay. This is raggedy. Okay. I'm going to stop here because of time constraints. I don't want the video to get too big. So I'm going to stop.